Okay, so you've made a multiplayer masterpiece. Now it's time to give it a home. We're going to throw it up in the cloud so that anyone can connect. This will work fine with Godot 3 and 4. There are a bunch of places to choose from, but I'm going to go with Linode. This isn't free, but they've got a 60-day, $100 trial credit, and it's only about $5 a month after that. If you want completely free, I have heard good things about the Oracle Always Free tier, but it's Oracle. You can also check out the VPS subreddit. People are always posting good deals over there. Even if you don't want to use Linode, you should be able to roughly follow most of these steps. So, after signing in, the first thing we're going to do is create our VM. Linode calls these Linodes. Linodes? I'm a Kiwi. We don't talk too good. We need to fill out a few details. I'm going to use the latest long-term support version of Ubuntu, and you'll probably want to pick the region closest to you and your friends. Let's pretend I'm in Texas. Next, you'll see all this pricing. $30 is a lot more than the $5 I promised, so let's look over in the shared CPU category. I'm going to skip over the labels and tags. They're handy if you have a bunch of different servers, but we don't need to worry. Give your machine a strong root password. Make sure you copy it because you're going to need it to log in later. You should also set up keys if you plan to SSH into it. If you follow my steps, we're going to stick the machine behind a firewall that doesn't allow SSH, so you can skip this for now. And that's all the info we need. While we're waiting for the VM to be provisioned, let's set up the firewall. We're going to change the default inbound policy to drop everything. Then we're going to create a rule to accept packets for our game. That's the easiest way to keep bad traffic from hitting our server. Assuming you're using eNet, you'll want to accept UDP packets, and the port number is going to be whatever port you pass to create server. So fill all that out and save your changes. Now, the only connections that your VM will accept are those going to the game port, which means you can't connect to it to set things up. To do that, we'll use Linode's lish console. This gives us a direct connection to the VM. You're now responsible for a Linux machine on the internet. So let's do some housekeeping. We'll install updates. All of the commands that I use are in the description of this video, so you can just copy and paste them. This is not going to be a crash course on Linux. If you don't know anything about it, go watch some network chuck or something. You should also check that automatic security updates are enabled. On Linode's Ubuntu images, they're on by default, but if you have a look in here, under the unattended upgrades, you're looking to make sure that there's security prefix things that aren't commented out. Next, we've got a few dependencies for Godot that we need to install. And finally, we'll create a new system user. It basically won't have permission to do anything except for run the game, and we'll call it Godot. Finally, let's create a folder that's going to hold the game. This game folder can only be modified by the root user. Everyone else has read-only access. Now, we're going to need a copy of the game here, and to get a copy of the game, we need to export it. So, over in Godot, we just pick Export from the Project menu. This will show you all of the export templates that you've already configured, and if you don't have them yet, you can just add a Linux export. If you don't already have the export templates, like it's telling me, you can just click this little Manage and download and install. They are quite big, so it might take a while. In the meantime, make sure that you have a way of starting your game as a server. You need to be able to do this without pressing any buttons. I used a command line argument, as you can see here. Once that's done, export your project, preferably without debug info. And voila, you've got a Linux binary that will run your game. We just need to get it from your computer onto your server. I've just discovered file.io, and it's a fantastic way to do this, if you don't mind uploading a game to a random server for a little bit. You just pick the file you want to upload, and you wait. The free tier only allows the file to be downloaded once, but that's perfect for us. Once the upload is finished, we jump back to our lish console, and we'll use wget to fetch that file. That'll download the game for us, and it's crazy fast. If we try and browse back to that link, you'll see that the file has been deleted from file.io, so no one else is going to be able to download it. Now, we've got the game onto the server, but it's got a stupid name. So we'll quickly rename it to my-game. By default, Linux won't let you execute random files, so we need to tell it that this is a binary that should be allowed to run. And now we should be able to run it. Don't forget to pass the argument to start it as a server. See these errors? That's because I forgot the headless argument, so let's add that. Headless is a magic incantation that disables rendering and audio and stuff like that. It'll run faster and save us from seeing a bunch of errors. Finally, we can try connecting with a client. Grab your VM's public IP from the dashboard and update your project's call to create client. If you've done everything right, you should connect to the server. We're basically finished. Let's kill the server. Going forward, we don't want to run it as root. We want to run it as that Godot user that we created earlier. That way, if we get hacked, it won't be able to do nearly as much damage. We'll also run it as a service, which means that we can have it start up whenever the server reboots. So we'll create our service descriptor. We need to configure a bunch of things. Requires on network and network online here means that our game won't boot up until the VM is connected to the internet. Working directory is just the folder that the service should be running from. We specify that it's going to be the Godot user. This service should always restart if it crashes out or the server reboots. Finally is our argument for running the server headless whenever the service starts. And then you need to have an install block. Multi-user seems to be the easiest. We can enable the service by running the enable command, and then we can start it by running start. Now that we've started it, the server should be running, so you can connect from your client again. What's even better is that the game server will now boot up whenever the VM reboots. Take a moment to watch as your VM quickly reboots. It'll also be finalizing all of those updates that we did right back at the start of the video, so that's a good thing. Now, without needing to do anything on the server, you can just fire up the game client and connect. How cool is that?